Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're all about the positive vibes here on the show. And with me right now, I've got a very special guest. He is an ECW original from the city of brotherly love. I'm talking about 1/3 of the Blue World Order, the one, the only, Blue Meanie is with us.
Hey, what's up, my friend? How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good to see you again. We met at Wrestlecon, and what an amazing weekend!
It really was. It was crazy. We were next door to each other. Got
Yes.
to take a picture. Man, so many people there. And the cool thing about WrestleCon is you know, or in any of these conventions, is that you get to network with people and catch up with wrestlers that you haven't seen in years. It's like a reunion. It's like a family reunion.
That, and that's how I look at them too, because and I love doing conventions because when you're on a show, you're hanging out, you're doing stuff, but most importantly, you're worried about your match.
Hmm.
With a convention, it's just like the locker room experience without having to get thrown around. So, and it's more relaxed, less anxiety because I'm at a show. I'm focused on what I gotta do. So
Exactly.
yeah, but yeah, when you do conventions, it's just a chill atmosphere. You get to meet new people, make new friends, and I don't think I've recovered since because yeah, you could tell my voice. My voice is a little deep. Like I talked so much that weekend, I kind of lost my voice. I've been recovering for the last 3 or 4 weeks,
Oh
but
yeah.
well worth it. Well worth it.
Definitely, definitely. So you're from Philadelphia.
Yes, sir.
What was it about professional wrestling that just got you interested?
Just the larger than life aspect of it. Um, I always say professional wrestling is like a live action comic book, and which is funny because I was never really into comic books as a kid, but it was just something that just reached through the TV screen and pulled me through that. I was like, man, I love this. When I was a kid, I went to my neighbor friend named Sean. I was like, "Hey, we'll come over and watch a Phillies game." He's like, "I can't watch wrestling right now. I mean, I can't watch the Phillies right now. I'm watching He said, "I'm watching wrestling." I was like, "What's wrestling?" And he came over to my house. We put on wrestling, and that was it. I, I watched it every week for my childhood up to adulthood up until the point where I moved away to go train. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a religion, you know. You get into it, you're hooked on it, and it's like the rest is history, pretty
Oh,
much.
absolutely. It was the bug that bit me, like
Yeah.
Spider-Man, you know?
Yep. Well, who are some of your favorites to watch? Was there any particular company you watched more of, or did you watch all companies? Because I mean, you're talking about the '80s here, just or '70s. So many different promotions. You got the WWF, WWE. You got NWA. You got the Crockett promotion. You got WCW. Just a plethora of promotions across the United States, and of course, you got the promotions around the world too. Was there any kind of promotion that you gravitated towards the most, or any wrestler from any company that you liked watching a lot?
When I first started watching WWF was the bug that bit me. And that was the prominent, promotion of the time. They ran the Spectrum once a month and, the surrounding areas. Uh, in some area, Philly's so weird. Well, I lived in South Jersey too, but like, in Philly, if you lived on one side of Broad Street, you had cable. If you lived on another side of Broad Street, you didn't have cable. So, but like when living in Jersey, we didn't really have TBS, so I couldn't watch Crockett until 85, 86. They start running worldwide wrestling on the local channel. But 3 years leading up to that, every week it was WWF. And then every weekend, while other kids are out playing and doing normal kid stuff, I'm sitting in front of the TV with the remote looking for wrestling. And I would find all kinds of wrestling. I would find Polynesian Pacific Pro Wrestling from Hawaii, California Championship Wrestling. It's like random international world class championship wrestling, from North Jersey. You just find all these random wrestling shows and just watch, and you're just addicted because that's all that's all you like. The 80s was such a great era to be into wrestling because there's so much of it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just like oversaturation. I mean, you couldn't escape it because it was that popular. I mean, talk about you had mentioned the WWE was like the most prominent one. I mean, you had Hogan there, you had Bob Backlund, um, you had Bruno.
Backlund was my first champion.
Really?
Yeah. I started watching in 1982,
Mm-hmm.
and then 1982, and then I watched every weekend. It would come on channel 17, it would come on channel 48. And then when we moved to Atlantic City, we got the New York channel. So we're watching on 48. I'm watching on 17, 48, and then we watch it on channel 9 and channel 11 in New York. So sometimes I'd watch the same show twice. But what was interesting is on, the channel, 17 and 48, you would get the Philadelphia voiceovers, and then you watch channel 9 and 11, and you would hear them, promoting the New York shows. So it was an interesting aspect.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like the Jersey area, Philadelphia were just not far from each other at all. So you could just go to one, and then the other one, and how it wouldn't make a difference in the world because it was that close. The
Yeah.
New York area just was huge. It exploded, and so you got trained by Al Snow in the '90s.
Yeah.
What was he like to be around? And tell me about the training process for you and how you got started.
Just, I mean, what you see with Al is what you get if you ever watched Tough Enough.
Mm-hmm.
When I started with him, he was just starting to, Al was starting to gain momentum. He was having this really good feud with Sabu in the Michigan area. And when I got to him, it was like a year before he started, going to Smoky Mountain WWF. Well, he was doing jobs on WWF TV, but I mean, he was as brutally honest, but yet kind as a trainer. Because when I got in the ring with him and I start, doing things and taking bumps for the first time, and you get frustrated because you want to learn and you kind of want things to happen naturally. And some things I picked up better than others, but the things I didn't pick up on right away, I would get frustrated, and he would just pull me aside and just talk to me like a human being and be like, all right, I get it. You're frustrated, but you just got to keep doing it, and you got to get it right before you move on to the next thing. And that's the thing. He wouldn't let me move on to the next thing until I perfected the one thing. And you watch, I've seen, people train, and it's just like other schools, they'll take your money and not show you something. If you don't get things, if you get it good enough, they'll let you move on, and then you're stuck with those, bad habits and bad mistakes. And thank God for Al, thankfully Al wouldn't let me move on until, I learned it and learned it right and moved on. But I lived in his school for a year. Uh, his school was on the sixth and seventh floor of a old Masonic temple, and there's living quarters. And I moved out from the East Coast, so I was like, it's not like I'm going to commute back and forth. So I lived in the school, and he had morning sessions, and then he had evening sessions because people would come down from Michigan, Canada, Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania. But I was the main one. I would work out I would do the 9 a.m. to noon session, and then I would do the 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. session. So I was doing the equivalent of two a days, like they say in football, you know?
Yeah, I've had Al on the show before, and he talked about just how you have to want it,
Yeah,
to be a professional wrestler. And he's very passionate about his craft and what he's done. And I think the work he's doing right now in OVW is just outstanding. He truly cares about his students and wants them to succeed.
yeah.
Uh, it's just really cool.
The important thing too is, knowing that he was training me. Um, you're ultimately an extension of the people who train you. So when I go out into the public, if I do something good, that reflects on Al. If I do something bad, that reflects on Al too. So I've always been conscious of always trying to do the right thing. Even if I make a mistake, just make the mistake and, acknowledge the mistake and then move on, where some people are like, oh, I didn't do that. That was that guy. It was his fault, not my fault. So like my ultimate goal was to not only go out there and represent Al as one of his students and, him being my trainer, but do it in a way where people go, oh, wow, Al really does well, as some really good students, and he trains them right, because ultimately I represent Al 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, I mean, it's about sacrifices, and you have to really be up to the challenge if you want to
Yeah.
make it in the industry. And so ECW came calling
Yes,
in
sir.
the 90s, mid to late 90s. How did you get involved with them? I mean, they were huge, just blowing up in that time period.
I started with ECW as a fan. If you watch a lot of those early shows, you'll see me in the crowd. And then, I found Al's school and I moved out there and trained for a year. And then, while I was training with Al, I would come back home like one weekend a month just to see the family. I always scheduled around ECW arena shows. So like as I'm leaving Jersey to go back to Ohio, I see the show. After the show, head back to Ohio. But what, I was at Al's and he was like, "Hey, it's you've been here a year. I've been getting you these bookings, and but it's time to go home and trying to learn how to hustle and promote yourself." So I moved back home and I started showing up at independent shows. He always taught me, go to a show, even if you're not booked, leave your stuff in the car, go in, introduce yourself to everybody, say, "Hey, I'm Brian. I understand you probably have a full show, but I got my bag in the car if anything happens, if there's an opportunity." And a lot of times, so I'd be, somebody would put me on the show and be like, "Hey, Brian, you're on third. So and so stuck in traffic," and I would get on shows. So there's three shows that I did. There was one in Baltimore, one in West Virginia, and one in Pittsburgh, where uh, Raven and Stevie Richards were on those shows. And it was the Pittsburgh show where Raven approached me. He's like, "Hey, we've been thinking about doing this thing for Stevie, where Stevie's my lackey, my flunky, my lackey, but we want to have a lackey for Stevie. So like you would have to, look like, dress like Stevie and all that stuff." I was like, "But," I said, "But I'll be in ECW, right?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "I don't care." So as we I debuted October 95, and for whatever reason well, there was an incident on the show where there's fire and all the footage from that show got thrown out. So I had to re-debut. So in that month between October and November, Raven come up with the Blue Meanie character. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna love it. You're gonna paint your whole body, but just do your hair blue for now." I was like, "But so I'll be in ECW, right?" He's like, "Oh yeah." I was like, I'm in. Fine, that's cool." And November to remember 95, I debuted as the Blue Meanie, as Stevie's super fan, and became Stevie's lackey. And it was very poetic that I debuted in the ECW arena, because I went to so many shows there that when he brought me over the barricade, it was kind of very, it was like is very symbolic of me going from the fan who used to go to ECW shows to the man who got the beat on the ECW shows.
Yeah, I mean anything to get on television, that's the thing. It's like once you have that character and it resonates with you, uh the sky's the limit. And so the Blue Meanie character really got over with fans to the point where in 97, just after the New World Order became a thing in WCW, the BWO, the Blue World Order, takes off. I mean, you're there with Stevie and with Nova. I mean, how did that actually come about, though? Like the Blue World Order stable, because that was really cool.
It was just a matter of Stevie and I were doing parodies. We were the Fabulous Ones where I was Blue Dust and he was Baron Von Stevie. Uh, it just evolved. And then once Nova came into the fold, we did Kiss and all these other, parodies and just the natural evolution of things. I did Blue Dust, when Gold Dust was hot. Well, I mean, he was always a big star, but
Hmm.
there's an era right when he had the Intercontinental belt and he did a naked promo with the Intercontinental belt covering him up.
Yep. Hmm.
So Paul was like, "Oh, we're gonna recreate that." So I, so the NWO was the hottest thing in wrestling. So
Hmm.
it just became a natural evolution, and you know, uh, there's a couple different aspects of it. I had always thought it was, me, but then Bubba Ray Dudley was also pushing for us to do parody of NWO. It just came down to what do we call ourselves? I was like, it just New Blue World Order. I was like, keep it simple, Blue World Order, and then we try to figure out who's going to play who, and it just made sense to IB Scott Hall. Stevie's the tallest, so he's Kevin Nash, and then Nova B Hogan. And we debuted November to Remember 96, 97, I believe, something like that. No, no, not 96, 96. And I should know the belt's like right behind me with the date on it.
Okay.
But yeah, it was supposed to be one night. It's supposed to be a one night deal, and it became a it became a couple months, like 6 to 7 months, and it led to Stevie being in the co-main event of ECW's first ever pay-per-view. And here we are in 2024, and people still, talk about the BWO, and you can tune into, Raw or Dynamite and see a BWO shirt in the crowd. It's just, it's awesome. It's
Yeah.
awesome. It's a testament to not only ECW for allowing it to happen and trusting in the people who do it, but me, Stevie, and Nova had such a chemistry that anybody else, it might not have worked. But I think the fact that me, Stevie, and Nova were just a bunch of young kids trying to do some stuff, and it stuck. And I I cherish every moment I had to ring with Stevie and Nova because it just felt natural. Like I could do something and like he would, they would react or they do something, I react, and we just had natural chemistry.
Yeah. Did you ever get like any comments from Hogan or Nash or just like, hey, like what you're doing, keep it up and
Not all at once, but like once ECW was gone and I started working, when I start working in WWE, I saw X Pac and I was like, "Hey man, hope you guys didn't mind the BW." I was like, "No, we loved it," And then you meet Kevin, then I met Scott Hall, and I was like, "Hey man, hope you didn't mind." I said, "No," and Scott would mention that like they'd be on the road and at their show they'd find like a local bar and just go ask them to put on wrestling, and if it happened to be ECW, and they'd be watching us. And Scott said he would rib Kevin Nash and say, "Hey, well, since the blue guy is me and he's the leader of the BWO, which There really was no leader. But it says he was the leader of the BWO and he's me. I should be the leader of the NWO just to, give him a little, elbow in the ribs, like, haha. But, and then ultimately met Kevin Nash, and Kevin Nash is so cool. Kevin Nash is one of the coolest guys. And he
He
was just
is.
like, hey, imitation is the highest form of flattery. It's the sincerest form of flattery. And that's cool. And then, I had a buddy who, had a local radio show in Delaware. Well, it's like half hour from here, and he had Hogan on. He brought it up. He's like, "Oh, BWO, I love those guys." So we got the blessing, so to speak. So
Yeah.
I think they knew that it wasn't anything malicious. There was the one time they were on Nitro, and ECW came up and they're like, "Oh, what, the bingo hall?" So the very next Saturday, me, Stevie and Nova, as the BWO came out, and we're throwing bingo cards out to the crowd and stuff like that, and a little jab back at them.
Yeah.
It was always done in fun. All the
Yeah.
parodies were done in fun. Wrestlers we grew up watching and respected, and characters that formed us. That's
Yeah.
ultimately, you know, there's at one point when you go from watching wrestling as a fan to studying it for future employment. So
Yeah.
we just became mimics.
Yep. Good times.
Absolutely.
We'll switch gears now, talk about the charity work that you've done outside of wrestling. What organizations have you partnered up with in your community over the years?
Well, at least in the wrestling community, I'm a big fan of the Cauliflower Alley Club. What the Cauliflower Alley Club does, they help professional wrestlers who are down on their luck. You know, uh, Being a professional wrestler, you really don't get a chance to, get insurance because we're so high risk.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to get insurance, the premiums are going to be through the roof and all that stuff. But like, hey, you got sick and you fell back on your bills, or you need surgery and can't afford the surgery. What the Cauliflower Alley Club does is they're legit charity. So if you join the Cauliflower Alley, you'll get a form and you can write it off on your taxes. It's tax deductible, all that good stuff. And every year they have a banquet, a fundraising banquet, which is amazing, out in Vegas. I need to get back out there. I was going every year, and then the world shut down, but I'm going to get back out there. But for sure, I'll say the CAC from now on, because it's kind of early for me to say the Cauliflower Alley Club. But the CAC, they've helped countless people. They've, helped, Kamala and a whole litany of wrestlers. God forbid something to happen to me. I'm a member. I bought a lifetime membership, and God forbid something happens to me and I fall down my luck. They will reach into the pot, the kitty, and I just send them whatever bill, and they'll help take care of it. They take care of the wrestlers, and that's what I cherish, because we are a brotherhood. Professional wrestlers are a brotherhood. Some get along, some don't, but ultimately we're in there for the same goal, and that's to entertain the fans and also have a living. But sometimes things don't always work out as according to plan, or I can plan to have all these things, but if something bad happens, the CAC will have my back, and that's one of my favorite charities. Locally in Philadelphia, I love you know Phil Abundance, philabundance.org. They feed families in need. They do wonderful stuff. So anytime I have a chance to donate, it's always to Phil Abundance. There's a local thrift store called Philadelphia AIDS Thrift, which I'll donate. Like, anytime there's something in my house I need to get rid of, take it down to Philly AIDS Thrift. They do wonderful work in the community as well. It's not what I give them; it's what they give back to the community. So that means a lot to me. So
Yeah. I mean, you gotta give you gotta give back as much as you can because you're the one that's receiving a lot and you're kind of taking a lot, and it's important to give back, because you just never know what can happen. And never forget where you come from. That's always important.
Absolutely.
And so, have you also trained any wrestlers as well?
I uh I like to say the word coach. Uh, you know, there's a lot of wrestlers out there who were either starting from scratch, or there's been guys who have been around for years and needed guidance. I've been that guy, where I'm not in there going, okay, this is lock up. All right, this is a arm bar. I'll take you aside and be like, that was great, or that was bad, or this is great, but next time do this, or that was bad, you should have done that kind of thing. And I have a lot of, what I call kids out there, Steve Macklin and TNA. I helped coach, Steve. I helped coach Matt Riddle.
Mm-hmm.
Helped coach Damian Priest, Ian Riccaboni, LSG, the Rocket, who's doing amazing things out there. I have a lot of kids out there. Whether it was a couple months or a couple years, I try to instill in people what Al Snow instilled in me. And I'm not perfect. I don't know everything, but I've done a lot of things good, and I've made a lot of mistakes. And what I try to teach people from the things I did that worked, but I also tell them, hey, I tried this and it didn't work out. Uh, because ultimately, if somebody makes a mistake, they think, oh, I'm done. My career's over. I messed up. No, it's a mistake. You learn from it. And sometimes mistakes can be a good thing. Sometimes, you know, you don't know what if you're on a roll and you're constantly feel like things are doing right, sometimes you need to a little like, oh man, that was bad, but you learn from it and you move on, or, it could a mistake could create a different opportunity that could be better than the thing you thought was right in front of you. So that's the things I try to teach people. I know what it's like to be young and inexperienced and paranoid, in the wrestling business, because you want to do great, but you could get in your head a little bit, and it's always good to have a mentor to say, all right, take a breath, things will be fine. And that's what I tried to do with some of the younger talent that have approached me about, hey, what do you think about this? Or can you watch my match? Or stuff like that,
Yeah, that is always important, and I like how you're paying it forward to the next generation.
because somebody paid it forward. Plenty of people paid it forward to me.
Yeah. Why do you feel passionate about helping out in your community?
It just, it just feels natural. Just like, oh, don't do that. Or, hey, man, good job. Because sometimes people need positive, you know, affirmations, just, it just, it's in my DNA. I can't describe why, but it's just something I feel the need to do. And if you're willing to listen, I'm willing to help you, good or bad, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, if I see you doing something right and I think there's something more you could do, I'll go, hey, that was great, but next time try this. This will work really well, or hey, man, so yeah, so you might want to work on your footwork. Your footwork's a little bit off, try doing this, just simple stuff, just ultimately a wrestler has to, you know, be who they are just with the volume turned up a little bit.
Right.
And just sometimes you gotta just shift them over a little bit to where they can still be themselves. They're not living up to your expectations, of no, it's got to be this, and this. It's a culmination of trial and error, and finding your way. There's no 100% blueprint. I mean, I you can go have somebody train and do drills all day, every day, but
Hmm.
unless you're out there in front of people and working in front of people and doing good things and making mistakes in front of people, you're truly never going to learn how to work. And that's what the best performers are in this business are people who know how to work in front of a crowd and, shift the momentum and change, make people feel different emotions. But it ultimately comes from what they do in the ring and from the mentors above them who say, hey, this is good, or hey, try this next time. you know
Yes. Always about that guidance.
yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with you.
Great catching up with you, my friend.
Yeah, great to catch up with you as well. I just want to say thank you for coming on here. It means a lot to
Thank you.
me. Yeah, you're welcome. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this. Where can people find more about you on social media?
If you would like to follow me on social media, I still call Twitter. I don't care. It's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Blue Meanie BWO. If you would like to support the Blue Meanie, go to prowrestlingtees.com/Blue Meanie. You get yourself one of these Meanie Mania shirts, or you get a BWO shirt, and helps keep the lights on here at Casa de Meanie. If you would like to, get a personal message from me, cameo.com/Blue Meanie BWO. Try to make somebody's day a little bit brighter. I try to give positive messages and stuff like that. So if you want to follow me, if you want to help support me, those are the best ways to do it.
Awesome. Thanks again, Meanie, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for your viewers and listeners for listening. Hopefully, I felt we had a great conversation, and
I did
I
too.
really enjoyed this. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
absolutely. Take care.
Have a great day, my friend.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.